Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Mulberry Talent Partners career conversation. My name is Kelsey Daly, and I am the talent acquisition specialist here at Mulberry. So, a little bit about Mulberry. We are a full service staffing and recruiting agency headquartered in Portland, Oregon, with an office in the Silicon Valley. We specialize in the placements of human resources, professional and financial office, payroll, and operations positions with direct hire, temp to hire, and temporary opportunities. I would encourage you to check out our website at mulberrytalent.com to see our previously recorded career conversations and our current job opportunities, which we update on a regular basis. So, jumping into introductions, we are joined today by Lauren Francis and Nathan Perez. Lauren is our fabulous founder and president. She started Mulberry back in May of 2017 and comes with over 25 years of talent acquisition experience. We are also joined by Nathan Perez. Nathan is a 10-time award-winning author, national speaker, and executive career coach at Career Innovation. He brings a rare viewpoint on networking, job searching, and career development. Nathan's 20-year career in the arts was supported by simultaneously developing a business career, which involved an inordinate amount of resumes, networking meetings, and interviews in multiple businesses and industries. Utilizing that background, Nathan ties together his deep live audience experience with almost 15 years in the executive search industry, delivering dozens of webinars, seminars, and guest speaking engagements each year on the topics of networking, job searching, and career development. So without further ado, I would like to pass it off to Lauren and Nathan.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome, Nathan, to Career Conversations. Yeah, we're just so happy to have you. We were introduced by a good friend of mine, and we both are close with another author in Portland, although Nathan's not in Portland or lives in this area, but that's how we were introduced. And what was interesting about your background, there's two things that you shared. One is your book is about networking. It's about being out there, and you position yourself as an introvert, which is so interesting because I see myself as an introvert too, but no one would ever agree with that. And your background is you were a stage and film actor, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, I don't know, how does that add up? Because I think one of the things about networking, people hear the word networking, and I talked to Mac Pritchard about this, who we also know in common, that networking, it sounds like work. And so people go, oh, and so just curious about, I'm saying a couple things here, but one is an introvert and networking, and talk to us a little bit about that.
So introvert, extrovert, let's give them a definition really quick, right? Yeah. So an extrovert is probably someone who recharges and they get their energy when they've been around big groups of people. And by contrast, an introvert is someone who recharges, gets the same kind of energy when you've had a sufficient amount of time to reflect. So I definitely fall in that in that second bucket because I'm someone who has to figure a lot of things out before I really go out there. But as far as stage and film and all that kind of thing, it's a skill like any other skill that's out there. It doesn't really matter so much the personalities. It's just who your personality is, I think, when you're out there in the world.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. Well, Nathan has written 2 books, correct?
There's a total of 4 that are called the 20-minute networking meeting.
That's right. There's 4 and there's different editions. So I have the professional edition, which you can see is really marked up and is one of my guides.
Yay, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then we have the 20-minute networking meeting for graduates. And I know you have 2 other editions. That's right.
There's one for executives and one for veterans. The executive edition, we just passed its 10-year anniversary actually this last month.
So great. There's just, this has so much, and it's very readable. I was telling Nathan earlier that was my bedtime reading, which, you know, it was very good. And I kept me going for quite a while. So
great. That's great.
Yeah. So networking, I hear a lot right now just because networking is, a lot of people are rusty. They're coming out of the pandemic. They haven't been in person. They've been working remotely. And I've been at a couple of events recently, and they're not as populated as they were. They're still a little bit smaller. But I still get nervous when I go and talk to people, especially people I don't know. I guess maybe start there in terms of going into a networking situation in person. with people you don't know. How do you prepare for that? How does someone looking for a job prepare for that?
It would start with what you're looking for. I'm really understanding what you're looking for. A lot of people go to an event like that or have meetings really not knowing what they're after, thinking that the purpose of the networking is to figure that out for yourself. But if you are prepared and you know ahead of time what discussions you need to have in order to get a certain kind of information that's going to inform what you need to do, that's where it becomes successful, because you know the direction you need to carry a conversation. And usually if we're the person who's approaching another person, besides an introduction, we tend to end up kind of driving that discussion and vice versa. So you can feel very confident that if you know what you're after, you're missing some information here and there, you've got some gaps in your understanding. And then if it's at all possible, understanding who's going to be there. It's great if you got a name, but at the very least, if you can understand industries, it's for very specific people, then you can have a game plan and you can show up knowing, okay, I've got these gaps. I know these kinds of industries are going to be here. Anybody who's in that industry is likely to be able to answer my question. And now you can just approach someone, introduce yourself, and literally tell them, hey, I'm in this industry. I happen to see you on LinkedIn, or I know that you're in this industry. Would you mind answering a question about X, Y, and Z? And right up front, right, you can, because if you just reverse the scenario and we are the wallflower, someone comes up and talks to us, and they're aware of us and they're aware of our industry and how they could possibly help, and then they got a specific question. Gosh, for us who are the wallflower, that's wonderful, because now we're engaged right into a discussion at an event that is purposely exists for that.
Oh,
Just
I love
being
that.
prepared. Yeah, being prepared and knowing what you want.
Well, and one of the questions that I was going to ask is how long does a networking meeting have to be? So this is a networking event. And so what you did, preparation, know your audience,
Yeah,
and be very clear and efficient in your communications. And one of the things you said in your book is it's not all about you.
right.
And
Never all
so
about you.
then there's a networking meeting, like asking someone to meet with you. So maybe
Right.
if you could talk about that a little bit.
Right. Well, so tops 20 minutes. So if we are accustomed to meeting with someone for an hour, really ask yourself, what is the content of that meeting? What is going to be discussed in that entire time? And if you filter out anything that is not really relevant to the discussion that you were there to have, then it really shrinks down to 20 minutes at the very most. And that includes an introduction, coming in and chit-chatting for a little bit, and then closing the whole thing up. But it really does have to do with that preparation. That same prep that you would do, what we were just talking for a more spontaneous or like a speed networking event, is the same kind of prep that you would do in a more formal meeting. If anything, I would say do it reverse, learn how to run a longer meeting, lock it down, what the sense of actually the communication process is in a short amount of time, and then translate it and just shrink it down in a more spontaneous scenario. But it's just that research and understanding and being prepared. But if you just filter it all down, doing that work, then it shrinks down to 20 minutes, and it can be less. You know, the book is called a 20-minute networking meeting. That is not a hard and fast rule. This is a people activity. When we have a discussion, the topics can go this way and they can go that way. But yeah, you can just keep it on track at 20 minutes. 20 minutes is just the tops. It can be shorter or longer. Right. You know, if it's someone you haven't caught up with in a really long time, then great. There's a little more chit chat to have. But to be professional and to really get something out of it, get your meeting out of the way first. You might have a little longer chit chat. You tell someone, hey, I want to be respectful of your time. These are these few things that I want to talk about. And then you've got free time again to talk afterward.
Sure. Well, you talk about being prepared, knowing what, that which makes all the difference, because people that are busy and when you reach out, they want to help. They want to help you.
Yes, people by nature, we want to be helpful.
We do. We really do. But our goal as networkers is to make it easy for that person to help us, right? By providing the information, the resume, the background, what you're looking for, your industry and your company, and you display that in your conversations and in that meeting.
Right. And being able to give all those things up front. So you just listed about 3, 4, 5, 6 different things, right? That's everything that would be inside of a meeting. So for instance, if I didn't have a game plan at all and I sat across from you, you might be forced to start asking me some questions like, Nathan, what is your background? What degree do you have? What's your experience, and so forth and so on. This is common in most discussions, especially networking meetings. So you could save a lot of time and effort because usually it's about time, right? If you already know that these are the things that are expected in a discussion and you can put those things up front, and your meeting's going to take off because you're putting the expectations up front, setting the tone of that whole meeting, allowing for you to have a full-on discussion because now you've already given context and perspective on you.
So when you hear people say networking, oh, I hate that word.
Yeah.
That just gives me anxiety. How do you respond to that?
First, I have to ask some questions, what about it? Usually I hear things like, I'm nervous, I'm an introvert, I'm afraid what people think of me. Well, here's the thing is that we have no idea what people think of us before or after we meet them.
Okay.
And really, it doesn't matter because what it is it's more about action. What do you know about you that you can share with other people?
So here's the thing. I think, we're nervous, all of those things, but I think preparation is everything. And you make that very clear in your book. So as a coach, you are a national speaker, you're an author, you are a career coach. And do you do role play with your clients to help them pull everything together?
Yeah, I do that in workshops, and sometimes I do that one-on-one. And the only reason that I do that is that if we can put ourselves in a first-person perspective and actually do something, we learn it much more quickly. But even still, when we do that, we get down to the why does it work this way? Because if we can understand why, usually we're also getting the other person's perspective. If we can communicate with someone else already understanding their perspective, we can provide them the information or what they need in order to carry us forward because we've had that expectation. Does that make sense? So the role playing is really great, especially in workshops and that kind of thing. And if a client wants to run over their background with me and then I'll bounce some questions off, that's wonderful because it's as close as you can get to a real world first person perspective. But understanding the why that's behind it, that I think is key.
Okay. Yeah, I think that with what I see is networking. The way I look at networking is it's a mindset.
Yes.
And it's training yourself not to think of it like some people, they come into a meeting with me and they start apologizing right away. I know you're busy. I don't want to take up too much time. And there's that. And then other people, there's just different ways of approaching it. But again, you want to put that aside and you want to be very clear and concise. And what I think of networking is actually having very good manners and and have excellent communication skills. So it's how you reach out, it's how you conduct yourself in that meeting, and how you follow up.
Absolutely.
That's really just, there's steps to it. And to look at it more as a conversation, like a fluid conversation, as opposed to anything else. I'm not a salesperson, but we are in the sales business. I don't see myself as a salesperson, but we do sell every day. We sell ourselves, in our work, there's just so much of it goes on. And so sometimes people feel uncomfortable, like I'm going to ask for something and I'm not going to do anything for you. And oh my gosh. And then there's the other side of the coin where people are taking, one of the things, they're not listening and they're not good listeners. I know one of the examples of the two candidates or the two different job seekers that you have in this book, the first two, one at the end, it says, is there anything I can do for you at the end of the meeting?
Yes.
When I hear that, I'm always so impressed. And sometimes it is, but in this example you gave was perfect. It was like she had a connection for his business, which I really found it was just so generous. If it comes to anything, that's not the point. The point is she provided another opportunity for the person that was helping her in the networking situation.
Yeah. I'm going to take that example and we're going to really simplify it. What she got out of it, what he got out of it in the story. Here's what really happens though. What that really was about was the obtaining of information. It was information gathering and what they did with that information. So I would say, let me just take a second here and let's really simplify and kind of redefine what networking is. Okay, because there are many different purposes, there are many different outcomes, but really networking really falls into two categories, business and personal. But regardless of the purpose or the outcome, it's still just about the information. And when we gather that information, we get it from someone, that's wonderful. That was a gift of time and advice and whatever else. If we can give that in return, then you've done it. That is networking. When you think about it like that, and we can further refine it. So what is information gathering? What is information exchange? Well, as it turns out, it's every conversation we ever have. When we say, how are you? What are you doing? Or whatever, whenever we ask a question, we're gathering information. And the information that we get usually comes with more details. So a simple one would be like, how was your morning this morning? It's really raining outside. Boom, that piece of information could dictate the rest of your morning or the rest of the day now that the weather has changed. And we take it for granted. So when we have discussions with people on their background or their particular experience, and they're just relating an anecdote, it's chock full of information that we could pull from. So when we gather that information and we can say, thank you so much, this has been so useful and so helpful to me. If I can be of help in the same way, please let me know.
Sure.
And you're also prepared, especially in a meeting, you're prepared to be able to give any kind of help that you know that you are able to give. So it's just very simple. It's just information gathering, information giving, and being reciprocal about it. We don't see that much in business right now. I think that is definitely going to change, where we just help people for the help that we've gotten with no expectations in return.
How do people reach out? So not in an on-site event, but through LinkedIn or through email or other sources. What can you share with our viewers what your recommendation is for reaching out over LinkedIn to hopefully create a meeting?
To create a meeting. Okay. And this is someone that you don't know?
Right.
Okay. Complete stranger. So what you would do first is you would look someone's background up, look at the people who you are trying to learn from. Maybe that comes in a job title. Maybe that means looking up certain experiences. Make sure they're relevant to what it is that you need to learn. And then you send them an email or a LinkedIn email. If you can get on a website and actually find an email address that'll go directly to them, that would be great. But you want to be very succinct in your message. We're talking about a 20-minute networking meeting. The whole reason that happened is because it's about time. The same thing with an email. We feel obligated sometimes to give the whole backstory of what's going on in order to explain why we're about to ask. And that's at the very end. But you can do that inside of 4 lines. Just have a subject line that is relevant to them. If this is for somebody because you've been introduced. And then in the body of the email, you just announce who you are, what it is that you are doing. I have 3 questions I would love to ask you over 20 minutes. I am happy to come to you. You said this earlier, make it easy for the other side, right? I'm happy to come to you. I'm happy to do video and then close it up. And so you got 4 sentences, and there's strategy behind the 4 sentences, because if it's a long email, most people feel like we do, which is, I don't know if I have a lot of time to read this right now. And I'll come back to it if I ever come to it. But someone who sees the subject line that is relevant to them, and you said, I'd like to ask these 3 specific questions about X, Y, and Z, and it's only going to take 20 minutes of time, they'll read a short email just to knock it out of the way as something that something that's going to be easy. And if they recognize these are easy things for me to be able to talk about inside of 20 minutes, you'll have much different response from people that you absolutely don't know, because you're giving the impression that you're put together. You know exactly what you need out of this. And quite frankly, any professional who's out there, that's exactly the kind of person that we want to meet with anyway.
Absolutely. And the other thing too that I've learned is try not to be wedded to the outcome, meaning, oh, I reach out to this person and they never reach back, and you're, oh, whatever. And so there's all these insecurities that come up and all that. And the follow-up would be in what time? Would it be 2 weeks? Would it something like that? And how many times do you follow up before you just let it go?
First, twice. Follow up twice, and then you'll probably let it go. The first time, it really depends on the meeting too. If you do a video meeting, if you do something that's more in person, then you can wait maybe 3 or 4 days. Keep in mind, I used to be an executive assistant for many years. Keep in mind that the weekends, right? No one does anything, including kind of Friday. So when I say 3 or 4 days, don't necessarily count that. You do want to give space. People want to take their weekends. So 3 or 4 days, and then you'll follow up. A tip for you, follow up with the last note that you sent. Okay, so you're saying, hey, just following up on the below. Yeah. Or you're saying, hey, I'm just following up. Like if you didn't get information then when you were leaving and you're following up on that, that's one follow-up. The second follow-up would be another 3 or 4 days after that. But general rule of thumb, 3 or 4 days. After 2 times, if you don't hear back, there's a reason. We don't know what it is. Don't feel rejected. It just happens sometimes, because
Right.
months later, sometimes people do come back.
They do.
It's okay. So you can just move on. 300 million people in this country, 8 billion in the world, they say. There's a lot of people who are willing to help, so you can just move on.
I have a great example. There was one client or one company, and particularly one person that I wanted to reach to provide our services to, and he never got back to me. It was like 3, 4 times in whatever. And so then one time, like, I don't know, a year later, I had a candidate that I knew would be right for their organization and for his department. And I just did a little, introduction. He emailed me from the plane within a couple of minutes. And now we have this great relationship, and I've helped him in one company, and we've worked together as a candidate, and I'm on the client and candidate side. And that is a classic situation where it's not over because somebody didn't reach out. Sometimes you'll hear from people later. So it's so important not to be wedded to the outcome and to take it personally.
Absolutely. This is the relationship building foundation of what networking is all about. It's about relationship building. And the thing is if you have a relationship with someone, and that means even a friendship, then that's what it is. That's what it gets to be. And sometimes friends get back to you sooner or later rather than sooner, vice versa. And so just forgive it, because it happens. Yes, there are the occasional flaky people out there who maybe never had the intention of helping you in the first place. But look, if they met with you in the first place, they did want to help you. There's just probably some other circumstances going on right now. There is also such thing as sometimes people feel like they can't be helpful to you with the things that you are asking of them. That also happens. Hey, that's human. We've been in that position. So you just move on.
Yeah. It's also very important when you start to build these pipelines is to stay organized with the people you've reached out to and have come back to you, because when it's very rare that I'll get a email or a message from someone that says, this is where I am in your job search, just wanted you to know, or those are great emails. I love getting those.
Yes.
I just wanted you to know that I landed here, and I appreciate all of your support and guidance along the way. And that is so important, to send the thank yous, to follow up and actually let someone know that you've helped along the way, that your time and your efforts meant something to them.
Yeah, to varying degrees, we all understand what the importance is of other people's support. So it's an amazing feeling when someone who's a complete stranger helps you out with something. But if someone accepts a meeting with you, they've got a stake in your success. They want to feel a part of that. That is part of being human. And I think these days it grows that much more important, right? Because we've become so technological. It's really easy to lean on the tech thinking that's everything, but really it's the people, it's the relationships.
It is. Absolutely. I did receive an email, this LinkedIn request this morning, and it was just all of a sudden it was in my inbox, and I was like, I like the way this person reached out. I think there's some improvement that could happen here, but so anyway, take a minute to read this, and then I wanted to ask Nathan to comment on what his advice would be to this person that would help make this outreach a little more impactful.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read this out aloud real quick. Hope your Northwest summer is going swimmingly. At the end of April, our company did an RIF on all of us on the clinical and operations team, leaving only the founder and engineering to focus on the standalone of products. Please let me know if anyone in your network needs an operations manager. Okay, so I think a few different things. Can I ask you a couple of questions about this first?
Sure.
So did you say that you do not know this person?
We're first connections, but I don't think we've ever had a communication or an exchange.
First connection. Okay, but you don't necessarily know. Okay. So what I would say first is that the content in this, I keep looking back and forth at it. The content in this and the approach is actually good because it gives us this background. It gives a perspective and it gives context on what's going on. And it's very specific. And it's asked as to what they are looking for. Operations manager. Now, here's the thing about it, though, and it was the first question I asked, but you don't know this person. So while the approach and the structure has got some stuff going for it, it is a little bit strange that you would send this random note with this kind of big request of someone that you don't know.
Mm.
This would have been really great if it would have been like your name. Now, look, sometimes with mailing lists and whatever, your name can be plugged in there, but at least your name, and it could be a little bit more personalized, maybe asking how you are doing. And that's really the only things that are missing. Because if this came to me, and they do come to me, and frequently, I have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. So I get a lot of these. Then it's kind of off-putting. It's a real fine line, but then it becomes off-putting because I just feel like I'm one of many people that this went to.
No, that's fair. I do like that it's short and it's to the point. And he asks for, someone needs an operations manager. So he's in it looks like the medical space. I don't know if it's tech or whatever, but there's a lot to like here. But I agree, there's just some refinement that could happen.
Yeah.
But
I would say
yeah,
that it's succinct. It's fairly succinct. It gets right to the point. It gives us the context and it gives us some perspective. That's what I would take away from this. It's something good.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really helpful. I'm really glad this came in today because I think you can't have all of your network on LinkedIn. You got to get out from behind the computer. You've got to meet people in person. You've got to
have to meet the people.
Yeah.
Got to build the relationships. Like LinkedIn and all technology, it seems one way because at a touch of a button, we can quote connect. But really, technology is just a facilitator. We still have to build the relationships. Fortunately, and I do say fortunately, we've now all gotten accustomed to using video because in person is really important. There's a lot of communication that's not spoken. So we get pretty close with video, but technology in the end is still a facilitator. We still have to meet the people, build the relationships.
I do find that I can meet with so many more people now that we're using Zoom all the time. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate this tool because in person for a networking, it takes up a lot more time. I think it's going to those networking events that also appeal to you. You don't want to go to some random networking event that you're not connected to the people or whatever. You want to be very specific and very intentional exactly in that. And also to be with like minds as well, to be with people that you can easily form a connection with.
At least like mine. You can have a whole bunch of different hobbies and go to a bunch of different events. The point being is that what you know is what other people are familiar with too, and that allows you to have discussion. So being intentional about exactly what kind of events to go to, that's what's going to be key. Unless you just want to go make some friends, but still be prepared to be able to talk about what they want to talk about, because that's what allows us to both engage and to learn.
Yeah. For sure. One thing before we close, and I don't know if you have additional things to talk about, but one of the public speakers that I listen to, he always says to dress for your audience. You don't dress for yourself, you dress for your audience. And he said, I dress for my audience. He does. He says that. And then Tracy Hooper always says, you are always in service to your audience, which
you are always in service
to your audience. And so your audience is all that networking. That's really what it is. And so many people today, we're a lot more casual as a society than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And what is your advice? Do people ask you about attire?
Yes. Oh, okay. Absolutely. All the time. It's important. It was one of the first impressions that you make on someone without saying a single word. If I come in with holes in my pants and my shirt, I'm all wrinkled and whatever else, the impression that I am not giving right off the bat is that I'm a prepared and organized person. How is this meeting going to go? Even if you were going to hold a really great meeting. So making sure that you are dressing for your audience is really important. So here's an example. If you are working in Silicon Valley and you showed up probably in a suit and a tie, you might get a sideways glance because that's not how people really dress in the office place. But if you are on Wall Street and you show up wearing Silicon Valley casual, you're going to also leave that impression. So it's important to keep that in mind. Always take it one notch up is what I tell people. If you know that they're just a shirt kind of company, then wear a tie with it. If they're a shirt and jacket kind of thing, then go up from there. Just take one notch up, and same with women.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I also think too, you're more confident when you feel good about what you're wearing.
Yeah, it makes you feel better. Absolutely, it does.
One of the things I was going to ask you is that you've been so generous to come on our show and to talk to our audience and our community, because this is a really important topic and this is a great book. So we look forward to giving this away to a couple of our viewers. And of course, if you know any recent college grads, we work with a lot of newly minted grads that will benefit greatly from this because all the advice that I give them is in this book. It's a great gift actually to grads. And so what can we do for you? Tell us a little bit more about your practice and what's next for you. What are you working on? Any new books?
Thank you. I'm an executive career coach. I actually work with everybody because of my own professional background. So there's that. I'm a professional speaker. If anybody out there works with veteran organizations, universities, executives, I'm happy to speak to groups. It's wonderful. And I am working on a new book. It is going to be like a companion manual. It's a standalone, but it's sort of a companion manual to the 20-minute networking meeting where it gets into more detail on how these things work. So throughout our discussion, you've heard differing and deeper perspectives on things that we've always talked about out there in networking. And that's the purpose of the book. There'll be stories in the book, lots of examples to be able to take you through everything.
Yeah. When is that expected to be out?
I'm hoping, the world is a little bit crazy right now, but I'm hoping by year's end. I got 10 years worth of notes and I'm partway through it, but I'm not quite there. So I'm hoping by the end of the year. I will probably in the next couple of months begin to actually post on LinkedIn some contents from chapters.
I hope the paper shortage is over by the time you get this.
Oh, you're only going to get half a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you both. This was such a great conversation and so many good tips and tricks and all of that. But here's a few ways that we can all stay in touch. So feel free to connect with all of us on LinkedIn, and here are all of our emails. And we just want to thank you all for choosing to fly with Mulberry. We know you have many options when it comes to webinars, and we're so happy that you chose ours. And thank you so much, Lauren and Nathan.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks,
all.
guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. And we'll see you guys again soon.